Good morning, everyone. I am Romeo B. Leneses Jr. from the Imports and Assessment Service, and I am tasked today to discuss to you the Value Reference Information System. On this topic, we will try to discuss or answer the following questions. Number one, what is the EVRIS or the Enhanced Value Reference Information System? What are its key features? What are the enhancements? And most importantly, how does the EVRIS actually works? So what is the Enhanced Value Reference Information System or the EVRIS? The EVRIS is actually one of the customs modernization project of the Bureau of Customs, which aims to enhance the existing value reference information system for it to be at par with internationally accepted standards. So as you can see on the screen, it was formally launched on August 17, 2020 by virtue of CMO 16-2020. It was developed in collaboration with Web Fontaine Group for it to be specifically WTO compliant. And just to give a short background on the EVRIS or the Web Fontaine Group, actually the Web Fontaine Group is one of the leading experts on customs and trade facilitation projects, and they have already developed various successful customs and trade related projects worldwide. The EVRIS is a risk management tool that allows customs officers to determine possible undervaluation and or trade misinvoicing of imported goods. But the EVRIS is not just a risk management tool. So what makes EVRIS more than just a risk management tool? So we will try to discuss that on the succeeding slides. For the key features of the EVRIS, the first key feature is the automated flagging of potentially undervalued goods. The keyword here is automated, which means that the system itself automatically identifies if a shipment falls below the minimum range. This feature, the automated flagging of potentially undervalued goods, is the risk management functionality of the EVRIS. For the next key feature, the EVRIS now provides for a lookup table of identical and similar entries in compliance with the WTO Valuation Agreement and the CMTA. This functionality or key feature allows our assessment personnel the capability to apply the sequential methods of valuation, specifically under Method 2, or the transaction value of identical goods, and Method 3, the transaction value of similar goods. The next key feature is the availability of a specification code. So the specification codes are the coded product description list that is available to our declarant or the importer during the lodgement phase. Next, we have the scanning capability of the E2M. With the scanning capability, the examiner and appraiser can now attach import documents under the Attached Document tab of the E2M. And last but not the least, the EVRIS requires assessment personnel to indicate the valuation method used. Well, there is a mechanism in the E2M. Well, the EVRIS is actually integrated in the E2M. So there is a mechanism that mandates the examiner or the appraiser to indicate the appropriate methods of valuation used. So later on, I have an example on the last part of this presentation for us to better understand how the EVRIS works. For the legal basis of the EVRIS, it was embodied under Section 101 or the Declaration of Policy, subsections A and B, wherein it states that it is the policy of the state, specifically the mandate of the Bureau, to develop and implement programs for the continuous enhancement of customs systems and processes that will harmonize customs procedures. And letter B, to adopt clear and transparent customs rules, regulations, policies, and procedures consistent with international standards and customs best practices. As I've mentioned on the previous slides, the EVRIS was developed specifically to be WTO compliant. For other countries, the EVRIS is actually synonymous to a national valuation database. And in fact, the National Valuation Database is internationally accepted practice used by several countries, including the ASEAN member states. And just this year, the ASEAN member states just issued an ASEAN Customs Valuation Guide, which signifies the approval of a national valuation database. Further, a certain provision or section of the ASEAN Customs Valuation Guide highlights that a modern customs verification technique includes the establishment of a price range parameters. And that price range parameters is essentially and practically the computerized program implemented by the Bureau of Customs or the EVRIS. So this implement the mandate of the Bureau under Section 101 to implement a modern customs system in conformity to international standards and best practices. For the last part, I will discuss to you the procedure in the use of the EVRIS. This is a diagram showing the step-by-step procedure or a manual on how the EVRIS actually works. The first step is when the importer lodges a goods declaration in the E2M. So the lodgement of the importer is through the Value Added Service Provider or the VASP. As mentioned as one of the key features of the EVRIS, there is now a product description list or product specification code. So this specification code is available to the importer during the lodgement phase. After that, it will now be for assignment of examiner through the GDVS or the Goods Declaration Verification System. Now, the EVRIS, as integrated in the customs system, now automatically identifies if the shipment falls below the minimum range. At this juncture, let us all assume that I am the customs examiner. So as a customs examiner, imagine that I have already retrieved an entry assigned to me through the GDVS. Once I retrieve the entry, the system will automatically tells me if there is a valuation hit, meaning the declared value falls below the minimum range. I will now explain to you the possible scenarios available to the examiner. For the first scenario, again, there is a valuation hit. As a customs examiner, I will not immediately upgrade the declared value just because there is a valuation hit. What I am required to do is to verify or check the documents presented by the importer. And in the event that there is reasonable doubt that exists or there is some lacking documents to support the declared value, then I will require the importer to submit it and inform the importer through the customer care portal system. Now, for the first scenario, assuming that the supporting documents were accepted, meaning all the documents are complete, all the documents are legitimate and authenticated. Therefore, the importer was able to substantiate the declared value. As an examiner, I can accept the declared value under method 1. So once I accepted the declared value under method 1 or the transaction value method, I will now input M1 in the box number 43 of the valuation method box in the SAT. So this signifies that I have accepted the declared value of the importer under the transaction value method. After that, it will now proceed to the customs appraiser for final assessment, then for payment, and eventually release of goods. Now we have the second scenario. Again, let us all assume that, again, there is a valuation hit. So as mentioned earlier, as a customs examiner, I will not immediately upgrade the declared value just because there is a hit or a valuation hit. What I am required to do again is to verify the documents presented. However, let us assume that upon review of the documents presented, the documents are all incomplete, the documents are not authenticated, or I found some illegitimate documents as submitted by the importer. In that case, I can now say that the importer failed to justify the acceptance of the declared value. So this means that the importer failed to establish that the declared value is indeed the price actually paid or payable. On that scenario, pursuant to Section 700 of the Customs Modernization and Tariff Act, if method 1 or the transaction value method was rejected, we shall now proceed with the subsequent methods of valuation. Now, here is where the EVRIS goes into the picture, wherein as an added feature or functionality of the EVRIS, the examiner or the appraiser can now access a lookup table of identical and similar entries. So this allows the assessment personnel to apply the sequential application of the methods of valuation. So in the system, the examiner will just click an I button for him or for her to view the lookup table functionality of the EVRIS. So once the examiner already viewed the lookup table, he or she shall now select the values of identical or similar entries as substitute to the declared value since method 1 is rejected. After that, the examiner is also required to indicate method 2 if transaction value of identical goods is used, or method 3 if transaction value of similar goods is used. Then it will be forwarded to the customs appraiser for final assessment, then for payment and release of goods. So that ends the presentation. Thank you everyone for listening and have a nice day.